NFL Network at 11 a.m. Eastern tomorrow already. But Edeldog finished with 141 receiving yards. Guys, let's do a little believe it or not here in Atlanta. This is the fewest points any team has scored in winning the Super Bowl. So let me ask you this. As great as Edelman was, and he was, 12 targets, clutch plays, should a defensive player have won Super Bowl MVP?
Yes. I believe it should have happened, Kay. I think it should have been Stephon Gilmore.
Really?
There's almost kind of an unwritten rule, though. To get the defensive MVP, you have to score a touchdown. Malcolm Smith scored a touchdown. Larry Brown scored a touchdown. Von just wrecked the whole world. Edelman was great. He didn't score. We can get into the numbers of it. Gilmore, it's not just the interception you see in the highlight package. He had a forced fumble. He had 3 pass breakups and 5 tackles. Of all people, Big Calais Campbell from the Jacksonville Jaguars last night was watching the game and tweeted out furious that Stephon Gilmore did not win. It got 5,000 retweets. I feel like the defensive players around the league were always very sensitive about rules and penalties, thought this was supposed to be their night, and I happen to agree with them.
Stephon Gilmore was a monster. I mean, I don't want to argue with you because...
Let's argue, Nate.
If he would have got it, I would have been fine with it, but I will argue with you because if Julian Edelman doesn't have the game that they have, the game is knotted at 3, and it comes down to a field goal like we've seen in plenty of Super Bowls.
They held the Rams at 3 points, Nate. The defense was really good.
Okay, but if Julian Edelman doesn't have the game that he has, they don't move the ball like they did.
They had 500 yards last year without Julian Edelman in the Super Bowl.
And Julian Edelman had 141 this year.
And the
Good.
5-yard catch to set up the field goal, too. And they only converted 3 downs in this entire game. All of them were Edelman.
Talk about it. Now, let me ask you this, Kyle.
Come on, Nate.
If Julian Edelman didn't play in this game, would they win?
I don't know. Maybe Chris Hogan could have done it. I don't know.
I love Chris Hogan. He's one of my favorite players. Couldn't get open yesterday.
Nah, but if you
I'll say this because
what do you got?
It's easy to pile on that thought right there, Nate. But to Kyle's point, all season it's been offense. 54-51 was a game we saw this year. Saints, Rams, Chiefs, we heard it all. This was a defensive game. And if it was a defensive game, you could say the best defensive player on the field should have won the most valuable player. Stephon Gilmore was the best defensive player on the field for either team. I'm with Kyle on this one. It would 100% been justified if Stephon Gilmore, who was a first-team All-Pro all season, and the best player in their defense all year, is it such a crime in a 13-3 game in the era of big offenses to actually reward the defensive player?
Nobody said that. I agree. The first thing I said is if he would have got it, I would have been okay with it. He had an amazing game. Julian Edelman, from the start of the game to the finish of the game, was the best player on the field to me. A $141, 10 catches on 12 targets. Not to mention, this is a defense that has Ndamukong Suh, Aaron Donald, who's supposed to put pressure on Brady. Akeem Talib and Marcus Peters on the back end. Linebackers that are supposedly the fastest in the business. They bracket them, they zone them, they man them. Julian Edelman still comes down with big-time plays, and not even in traffic. My man was routing these dudes up, open by 3 or 4 yards.
He's incredible.
I'm saying, obviously, I'm a little bit biased because I'm an offensive player and a wide receiver. Either guy could have won it.
Sure.
I'm a firm believer that without Julian Edelman, this game comes down to a field goal, and with Greg the Leg Zuerlein on the other side, the Rams could have kicked the long one and won it. That's all I'm saying.
Can I shift gears on Edelman? GMFB memories. I remember a couple of years ago we did a whiteboard topic.
Okay.
We were talking about Tom Brady, and the question was something along the lines of, when it's all said and done and you close your eyes and think of Tom Brady's career, who's the receiver that you think of that he's throwing to? And I remember some of us said Troy Brown, and I think Kay and Peter said it's Wes Welker for sure. That's done now. I think it's Edelman. Edelman's got 3 Super Bowl rings. We're 2 seasons later. I love Welker. I love Deion Branch. I love Troy Brown. When Brady's all said and done with this, his guy through Brady's career is number 11. It's Edelman. That's the guy.
And it's those postseason moments where he comes in clutch. And we're talking about that field goal. That field goal doesn't happen without that 25-yard catch. The game-winning touchdown does not happen without a huge play by Edelman there. I don't think Chris Hogan could do it because as great of a teammate as Edelman says he is, it is what Belichick said when he was at the podium, a guy who, for whatever reason, has some gene that when the biggest moment is there and when all the noise in the world and that stadium is shaking, he does not lose his nerve at all.
Yeah, to Kyle's point, he used to be the sidekick. It was like, oh, it's cute. He's
Brady's best friend.
Former quarterback.
Now he's an equal.
Super Bowl MVP. I said it earlier in the show. I heard from someone in Edelman's camp. He gets out of the locker room. There's buses supposed to take the team back to the hotel, but the MVP gets in an SUV.
That's awesome.
And they put him there, and he's like, all right, gets in with his friend. And he's kind of still in the moment. Then they open the doors to the hotel, and there's 1,000 Patriots fans at 11:30 at night outside of a hotel waiting to receive him. And that's when Julian Edelman finally realizes, it's about me. It's not about the Patriot way. For a second, can I have a moment? It's about me. He felt like a rock star, and he is.
He converted the only third downs on the night, all three of them for the Patriots, and the MVP spoke to NFL Network.